Hello and welcome, everybody. Good to see you. Look forward to sharing with you today about the inner critic because we all have one. Some of us have inner critics that are live and well and running the show. And today we want to do what we can to calm that voice, maybe turn the volume down on that voice, maybe understand that voice a little more, have a little conversation, do a little tapping and a little meditating to work on our relationship with our inner critic because, boy, we all have one. So, I'd like to start today with our little meditation that I call Elevate, just to get us centered, grounded, and arriving. So, if you're in a comfortable place to do it, please close your eyes and just start taking a couple deep, nourishing breaths, getting centered and grounded and arriving. Just allowing yourself to slow down, to arrive, maybe putting your hands over your heart. Slowing your breathing, bringing your attention into your heart and out of your head as much as you can. And I want to invite you to think about someone you really, really love, human or animal, currently on the planet or not. Just someone special. When you think about them, it really brings you into that space of love and gratitude and appreciation. And really allow yourself to feel that emotion. Feel love. What does it feel like in your body? Maybe it puts a smile on your face. Just letting yourself really be in that space of love as much as you're able. And if this feeling has a color to you, tune into that color. So for a lot of people, that's pink or green. And just imagine filling every single cell in your body up with that feeling of love. And let's take another deep, nourishing breath together. Opening your eyes, coming back to here and now, ready to learn about your inner critic. So, I want to share to begin with a little disclaimer. I am not a therapist trained in IFS, internal family systems. So, I want to make that clear that I am not an expert on IFS. However, I will share that I have read the book No Bad Parts by Richard Schwartz, the creator of IFS, Internal Family Systems. And I'll be sharing today from another book that I've read called Self Therapy by Jay Earley. And this is about creating wholeness and healing your inner child using IFS, a new cutting edge psychotherapy. And I've been in a study group learning about IFS, and I use it with my clients. So I'm an EFT practitioner that uses parts work with my clients and with myself. And so we're just going to be getting to just touching on understanding the inner critic and what the inner critic's job is and how we can actually befriend it to whatever extent we can. So the first thing to understand about IFS is that we have parts, and that's parts with a capital P, meaning that our psyches, our way of thinking is there's different parts of us because of different that have different reasons. So there's categories. So the first category is what I call the wounded child or the wounded children within us. And that is from the times when we've been hurt in whatever way and we have created what's in a different way of looking at it is called a trauma capsule, meaning that a part of us was cut off or split off at that time, and that part is still hurting, is still upset, still sees the world through that lens. and that there are a variety of inner children. And by the way, it doesn't always have to be children. Let's say you were in a car wreck a few years ago. There may be a part of you that's broken off and is afraid to get in a car. And that part, even though it wasn't formed as a child, is also what IFS calls exiles. And I will tell you, I don't love the term exiles because this is a part of ourselves, or these are parts of ourselves that we really want to fall in love with, that we really want to love and support and take good care of. The reason that they call, or Richard Schwartz came up with, exiles is because we want to pretend they're not there. We want to shy away from feeling those feelings. We don't want to feel hurt, obviously. We don't want to feel sad. We don't want to feel angry. We don't want to feel all those feelings. So we exile that part, like to a dark place, the shadow side, the shadow part, and we want to pretend it's not there. So that's why it's called an exile. I like to call it the wounded child or the wounded children. So just sharing that to begin with. And then we have what's called protector parts, and that's what the inner critic is. The inner critic, and really hear this part, the inner critic is trying to protect you. It is a protector. Its job is to keep you safe. As crazy as that sounds, because it is also the part of you that's telling you, you did this and you did that, and you better not do that, and you're getting too big for your britches, and who do you think you are, et cetera, et cetera. The inner critic is doing this in a painful way, protecting you, trying to keep you safe in a way that doesn't really make sense to us, the thinking part of us, the prefrontal cortex part. But honestly, it is trying to take care of us. All of our parts have a motivation, have a purpose that makes sense. All of our parts are trying to take care of us, including the inner critic. So, I want to read you a little bit out of this book. It says, the human psyche is organized around avoiding pain. This is the job of the protectors, to buffer you from suffering. Okay? The inner critic is trying to keep you from feeling the pain that the wounded children within you are holding. So, understanding that is kind of the basis of understanding that your inner critic is trying to help you. So, excuse me, it says that the protectors take their job extremely seriously, believing that your well being and maybe even your survival depends on what they do. So if you think about your inner critic believing that what it does is for your survival, hopefully you can be a little more understanding about your inner critic. Because the reality is, most of us judge ourselves for judging ourselves, right? So we have the inner critic that is judging us, and then we judge ourselves for judging ourselves. So it's a really complicated thing going on within our psyches. We respect our protectors' need for defenses, and we take our time getting to know them and gaining their trust. Only then will these gatekeepers relax and give us permission to work with the wounded child within. So it's a little bit crazy in that we want to get to know the inner critic, we want to befriend the inner critic, we want to understand the inner critic. And so that's what we're going to do today. And by doing that, we kind of take away the pain of what the inner critic is telling us, and we get to question it. That's my favorite way of looking at it. When I'm thinking, boy, that was stupid. I can't believe I did that, or whatever it is the inner critic's telling me at the moment, I get to question it and go, is that really true? Can I see this differently? Can I take a different perspective? And what you're actually asking is, can another part of me, and we're going to be focusing on this part next week, the core self, which I like to call the higher self, the God self, the divine part of us, the soul self, the treetop view self, the part of us that sees all the rest as a compassionate observer. So the core self, we're going to get more into this next week, but the core self is the part that can look at all the parts. It's not even a part really, according to IFS. The core self is who we truly are, our divine selves, the soul part having the human experience that is able to look at the inner critic and the perfectionist and the organized part. All the protectors can also be the addictive part. There's so many different protectors. We all have different protectors that serve us in different ways, and mostly we're judging them for doing their jobs. So I'm hoping you're getting this, that this is making sense, that by befriending the inner critic, understanding the inner critic, we can start, instead of judging it, we can start questioning it and creating a new perspective. And hopefully that perspective comes from the core self, the compassionate observer. Okay. So if you want to put in the chat if you have any questions, or, yeah, this makes sense, or, nope, can you explain this part again? I would greatly appreciate it before we get into the tapping. Okay. So we're going to move into tapping now, and we're going to do this as a conversation with the inner critic. So a lot of the tapping today will be saying you, because we're going to be talking to the inner critic. So, brief overview of EFT, emotional freedom techniques, or tapping. And by the way, what we're going to be doing is not real EFT, meaning we're not going into deep healing. We're just going to be using tapping to get more into working with our inner critic. So, this is what you need to know to do the tapping with me today. We are going to start by tapping on the side of the hand. So, this is under the pinky finger, and generally use all four fingers. And we'll be doing what's called a set up phrase or balancing statement, which will be something along the line of, even though I have believed all the things the inner critic has said to me, I'm learning to see things in a new way. So it's called a balancing statement because we say the even though part is what's actually going on, what we're actually thinking. It's the truth telling part. And then the second part of it is the balancing part. It's I'm learning to love and accept myself, or I'm okay, or I'm safe. Or today we're going to be saying creating a new perspective or questioning the inner critic. Okay. So we'll be doing that 3 times on the side of the hand. The first time around, we may only do it once later on. And then we're going to do what's called a round. And when we do a round, we'll be tapping with 2 fingers starting at the eyebrow point. So you can go ahead and do this with me just to get a feel for it. And also, tapping has been proven to lower your cortisol level, which is your stress hormone. So it can be calming even before we get to the words. The next point is the side of the eye, and you're right on the bone on the side of the eye, not way back on the temple. Our next point is under the eye. The next one is under the nose, and I'll be saying these for you the first few times around. The next point is called the chin. It's actually the indentation between the lip and the chin. Our next point is the collarbone point, but you actually find your collarbones and go down about an inch and out about an inch. So it's a little bit closer to the shoulder, actually. The next point is called the underarm point, and you'll be going. So, ladies, it's down at the bottom of the bra line or where you would wear a heart monitor. So, it's about 4 or 5 inches below the underarm. And you can do what I'm doing, which is the same side or cross body, if that's more comfortable for you. And the last point we're using today is the top of the head or the crown of the head. So, before we get started, I'm going to ask you to come up with a number, 0 to 10, of how much, let's see, how do I want to word this? How much do you believe your inner critic? How much do you believe that you are not good enough, or something's wrong with me, or I make a lot of mistakes, or I'm not lovable, whatever your inner critic's telling you? And we're going to be using a variety of terms. How much do you believe that? 10 being 100% believe it, totally believe my inner critic. 0 is, oh, I get it. I don't have to believe anything my inner critic says. So if you'd like to put that in the chat, you're welcome to. Certainly don't have to. But it kind of lets me know how well the tapping is working. We like to use a SUD scale or SUE scale. I'm not going to go into explaining that today, but we like to use the 0 to 10 scale just to see how well it's working for us. All right, so I hope you have that number 0 to 10, how much you're buying into and believing your inner critic. And remember, we're doing this kind of as a conversation. Well, maybe we will, maybe we won't. We'll see how it comes out when I start the tapping. All right, so I'm going to ask you to grab a sip of water or tea or whatever you're drinking, and then we're going to get started tapping. All right, going to the side of the hand with me. Let's take a deep breath first. Repeating after me, preferably out loud. Even though I have believed my inner critic all my life, I have believed I'm not good enough, that there's something wrong with me, that I'm not lovable, or whatever stories my inner critic tells me. Today, I am learning to understand that my inner critic is trying to protect me by telling me all these things, and I get to question if they're even true. So even though I have believed my inner critic for a very long time, wouldn't it be cool if I could start questioning if it's even true? So even though my inner critic is alive and well and telling me how horrible I am all the time, today I am open to the possibility that I can start questioning my inner critic and maybe even remembering that a lot of what it says is not true. All right, let's go around the points. I have believed my inner critic for a very long time. Side of the eye. I have believed everything it's told me. Under the eye. I created this voice a long time ago. Under the nose. And maybe it's the voice of a parent or authority figure. Chin. Or maybe I just created it. Collarbone. And today I am learning that I don't have to believe everything it says. Under the arm. I am beginning to see my inner critic differently. And I'm beginning to understand that I can question what it tells me. So we're going to stop tapping for a moment, and I just want to share another idea. And it's something that I created with my friend Deanna Lyon years ago called the 3 N's, the letter N. And it's notice it, name it, choose new. And what I mean by this is as soon as you notice that the inner critic has taken over and that the inner critic is telling you, "Oh my gosh, can't believe you made that mistake again. You are so stupid. Who do you think you are?" Whatever the voice is, yakking at you, as soon as you notice it, you get to name it. "Oh, that's my inner critic." And you get to choose new. You get to go, "Oh, I don't have to believe that anymore. Is that even true? I wonder if I can see this differently." Okay. So I just wanted to share that before we do this next round of tapping to understand that when you get to know the inner critic, when you start having a conversation with it, when you start questioning it, that you really can lighten up and you can be more gentle with yourself and more compassionate and understanding. And that's where we're going now with the tapping. So going back to the side of the hand, taking a deep breath. So even though I have believed my inner critic for so long, today I am choosing to notice when it starts telling me how awful I am, to name it that it's just my inner critic and it's trying to take care of me. And I get to choose a new perspective today. Let's go around the points again. I've believed my inner critic my whole life. Side of the eye. And today I am learning to notice that voice. Under the eye. And when I notice that voice, I can start to question it. Under the nose. I can question it and maybe even realize I don't have to believe it. Chin. I can start seeing myself differently. I can start focusing on what I do well. Under the arm, I can start remembering that I am a divine being having a human experience. Top of the head, and that all humans make mistakes. Back to the eyebrow. And maybe they're not even mistakes. Maybe they're just learning and growth opportunities. Side of the eye. Maybe I can start questioning all those negative beliefs. Under the eye. Maybe I can start being gentle with myself. Under the nose. Wouldn't it be cool if I could be much more compassionate with myself and with others? Chin. I wonder if I can start seeing everything differently. Collarbone. I'm open to the possibility that I can think a little differently. Under the arm, that I can be more gentle and loving with myself and others. And I'm choosing to start noticing that voice today. And as soon as I notice that voice, I get to question it and see things differently. Side of the eye, and I get to be more loving and compassionate with myself and others. And I get to cultivate a new loving, caring voice. Under the nose, I get to start treating myself with love and respect. Chin, I get to be nicer to myself and others. Collarbone, treating myself harshly has never changed anything. And so today I'm choosing to be much nicer to myself. Under the arm, I get to thank the inner critic for trying to take care of me. And I get to start doing things in a new way. Top of the head. And I am so, so grateful. So I'm going to ask you to stop tapping, put your hands over your heart, take a deep, nourishing breath. And I really want you to tune in to that feeling we started with at the beginning of love. So if you weren't with me at the beginning, we were creating that feeling of love by tuning into remembering someone we really love, human or animal, currently on the planet or not. So as much as you're able, tune into that loving feeling, that loving energy, and start playing with creating that loving voice, that gentle, hey, it's okay. You're just learning. You've made some mistakes. Oh, well, every human has. Oops, maybe I can be a little more playful, a little more lighthearted, a little more gentle, a little more fun. So I want to invite you to bring that energy of lightheartedness, of not taking yourself so seriously, and bring that energy into your heart along with the love. So love, light, lightheartedness, playfulness, and allowing yourself to move forward from this point today in a more gentle, loving way. So let's take one last deep, nourishing breath together. Opening your eyes, coming back to here and now. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found this helpful. I hope you'll be a little more gentle with yourself. Feel free to put comments in the comment section afterwards if you decide to make a comment afterwards. So in a little bit, this will be posted. The recording will be posted and you can make comments and it'll be timestamped for where the tapping starts. So anyway, next week, same time, we will be playing with the core self, the compassionate observer, and really growing that voice. So thank you again. Blessings to you all. Have a great day. Namaste.